everybody, it's that time of the week again. Let's talk about episode 8 of Shadowhunters, Bad Blood. The episode starts out with Clary, Jace, Alec, and Isabel discussing what to do with the Mortal Cup, why they should or shouldn't give it over to the Clave, and then Clary having Alec hide it in that little vault in the floor in the Institute after Clary has put it back in the tarot card, because they just don't want to give over this power to the Clave quite yet when it's their only bargaining chip. The next thing that happened was really well done, and I'm actually very happy with it. Rafael shows up with Simon at the Institute after he has been attacked by Camille, drained and dead, very dead. And it's a little bit different from the books, but I like the way they have changed it to show on TV. Basically, Rafael is not his sire, but he is looking over Simon throughout the process of him becoming a vampire. And the way they make it work to where Rafael takes over the New York clan, I think it was really well done, and I'm very happy with it. The scene wasn't quite as emotional as it was in City of Ashes, whereas Rafael shows up at the Institute with a dead Simon and Clary loses it. The feel of it, the tone of it was a little bit different than in the show. In the show, we don't get much as far as in the very beginning when Rafael shows up with Simon. It just wasn't like it was in the book. Simon doesn't briefly wake up and say Clary's name or anything like that. He's just dead the whole time until the end of the episode when Clary decides to let him become a vampire. Another really cool thing that happened in this episode, we see Valentine speaking to Jocelyn's comatose body, whatever, and saying how he figured out that Clary was his daughter as well. And then he finds out that Clary has the Mortal Cup, and that she's protected by Luke, and oh, Valentine's face when he finds out Luke is protecting Clary. Valentine really just is horrible. He's horrible, and Alan Van Sprang is doing such a great job as Valentine. I couldn't imagine Valentine done any better. So Clary in this episode, we see her visit Simon's mom. She's trying to decide if she wants to tell his mother what is going on, and she ends up lying to her, and I don't know what exactly she tells her because they don't show us that scene, but we see a whole cute scene where Jace is in the same room as them, but he's disguised, he's glamored, and he knocks down a little, I don't know which, if it was hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil, but he knocks down one of the monkeys, and Simon's mom tells Clary about how much she loves her son and he's one of the only things she has left in the world. And Jace has to warn Clary to be careful with what she says. And later on we see Jace telling Clary the Falcon story, as from the books, about how Jace was given a falcon and he was supposed to tame it. He didn't tame it. He taught it to love him, and his father broke its neck. And he explains to Clary that in no exact words, that to love is to be weak, and you just have to set yourself aside from your feelings and emotions when you're a shadow hunter because they cloud your judgment. Clary later on in the episode explains that that's not true, that love makes you stronger. And it's a really great scene to see the expression on Jace's face when she tells him this, because he's been so used to believing in one way for so long now that Clary is completely saying that's not right. You need to totally get this crazy idea out of your head and change your ways. Another thing that happens with Clary in this episode, we see her go to Luke at the Jade Wolf and ask for his advice on what to do about Simon. And then he tells her about how things went down when he became a werewolf, and we're shown another cool flashback scene. I thought it was better than the other flashback scenes with those weird fighting scenes in the flashbacks. I didn't like the way those fights looked in the flashbacks. but I thought this scene was actually pretty good. Then he tells Clary that she just needs to be there for Simon if she chooses to let him become a vampire, and be understanding and supportive, and the friend she's always been to him. Alright, I'm gonna get back to Clary and Simon and Jace and everything that went down with Simon at the end of the episode. But first, let's talk about Alec, Izzy, and Magnus in this episode. When we first see Alec and Izzy in this episode, they are informed by Robert and Maris that an envoy from the Clave is going to be arriving and investigating things around the Institute, and that they need to start being on their best behavior because things are getting really bad and the Lightwoods are in a lot of trouble. In the next scene, we see Alec telling Max if he's on his best behavior, he will help him get his stele back. And right after this happens, we see Valentine walk through the door. It's not Valentine though, but Alec does not know this, shoots an arrow at Valentine, and Valentine catches it. Turns out it's not Valentine, it is Lydia Branwell. She is disguised as Valentine, and I love this character, especially because I am a huge fan of her ancestor, Henry Branwell, and I will get back to that in a bit. So upon entering the Institute and all of that and telling all of the Shadowhunters that their reaction time was abysmal, I think that's the word she used, except for Alec, she tells Maris that she's taking over for a bit, temporarily, and Maris is not happy. No, she is not happy. We learned a lot of really cool things about Lydia in this episode, and I feel really bad for her character. She was a newly married Shadowhunter set up to run the Lisbon Institute, and had her dreams crushed when the love of her life, her husband, was killed. So she lost her husband and did not get to take over that institute. So I just feel really bad for her and hope eventually she has a better outcome. Throughout the episode, we see a lot of scenes between Alec and Lydia. They go to the Jade Wolf Chinese restaurant to investigate an attack because Valentine's Forsaken went and tore the place up, and they need to figure out why they were so hard to kill and what's going on. Alec is sadly, for the first time, informed that his parents were members of the Circle when Lydia just blurts it out. I felt so bad for Alec at this point. It was a really sad scene. He does not like being left in the dark, especially when he just shows so much loyalty and he just isn't given any trust in return. Just, ugh. It's not cool. It's not cool. His parents are so not cool to him. Now, on to what really blew my mind about this whole thing with the Forsaken. It wasn't the Forsaken itself. It was the fact that they take the body of a Forsaken from the restaurant to the Institute because they have an expert forensic pathologist. And it's Izzy. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss something? When did she... What? I have no idea, and I don't even know how to argue about this, so I'm just gonna move along. When we see Izzy investigating the body, we see Magnus there as well, trying to figure out what kind of magic was used to create this Forsaken. And there's a lot of cute back and forth between them about Alec and what's going on with him. And poor Magnus, he is like pining for Alec at this point, and he just can't seem to get anything across right to Alec, because when he finds Alec in the Institute and starts kind of flirting with him and telling Alec that he should follow his heart and do what he wants, Alec does not do what is expected. He proposes to Lydia Branwell because he wants to be in charge of the Institute, and he knows she wants to be in charge of one as well. How is that following your heart? I don't know how that is following your heart, but whoosh. A little later, after we're not shown what Lydia says to Alec, we then see a Forsaken barge into the Institute, attack Hodge. Alec comes to the rescue, and then Hodge kills this Forsaken. The reason they're so hard to kill, it has something to do with Valentine using Nephilim blood to make them stronger. Now, before I get back to Clary, Simon, and Jace, there's one more thing I wanted to touch on that I just loved. There was a really great scene where Lydia is speaking to Alec about Magnus Bane and how she's really excited to meet him. And Alec just gets all awkward and he's like, he's very magical. He's so just trying to hold in his feelings, and I really don't think she's picking up on what he is hiding from her. But what I do really love about this scene so much is that she mentions her ancestor, Henry Branwell, who is from the Infernal Devices series. And she mentions how he and Magnus created the portals together. And it's just great. I love that they name dropped him. So far they have name dropped Tessa, Henry. I don't know who's next, but I'm really, really excited to find out. One other thing that's really cool about Henry, he introduced Magnus to glitter. I just thought I should mention that. Now let's get back to all things Simon. When Clary is about to bury Simon, Camille shows up and tries to take Simon's body back. She's trying to cover up that she killed a mundane and broke the accords. Well, Rafael turns it around on her and has the clan of vampires attack her, and Rafael takes over. It's awesome and I love it, and just, yes, I hate Camille. Clary even expressed my feelings towards Camille when she punched her in the face. It was great. When Clary finally buries Simon, she buries him with some of his Jewish things, and when he is reborn is when things just got so real, and it was the best part of the entire episode. As Clary and Jace sit by Simon's grave and wait for him to rise out of the ground, we see the ground start shaking. Simon bursts from the ground, and when Clary starts to try to speak to him, he hisses at her. Rafael throws some blood bags at him and he just rips into them. And then when he finally becomes coherent, he starts freaking out about what's going on. He can't say God anymore. He thinks he's repulsive and a monster, and he wants Clary to stay away from him. He runs off. I can't. It was so emotional, and Alberto did such an amazing job bringing this scene to life. It was very similar to the books with a few exceptions. One thing that I really loved though is that he was in denial when they keep telling him kind of what's going on. He has to keep clarifying what's going on. He feels the fangs. And even then, he doesn't believe it until Clary tells him that he died and he is now a vampire. All right, so now I'm gonna get to a couple of my favorite quotes of the episode. They're just some lines that Simon said that just really stuck with me. So the first one is, Clary, tell me this isn't real. Tell me this is not really happening. I lost it at this point. That was such a just gut-wrenching scene and line. I couldn't deal. The next thing he said that really stuck with me was, I'm nothing more than a monster, before he ran off. Poor Simon, I wouldn't have been able to deal either if I were him. And it's gonna take a lot for him to feel okay being a vampire. And I'm excited to see the journey of him coming into his own as a vampire. All in all, I thought this was one of the best episodes. I had a couple of issues with a couple of things, like I've said, but hopefully these changes will be for the better as the season progresses. I hope y'all enjoyed this recap and review. Continue to comment, like, and subscribe, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye, guys.